Well, with the multitude of moves going on, one that might seem minor but actually gave me an idea was Johni Broome being sent to the LA Clippers for cash considerations. Cash basically considerations basically meaning literal salary cap, and so I thought I would take this opportunity as an excuse to one, learn, and then two, regurgitate my learnings on the salary cap. Uh, Two good sources, of course, the NBA itself, so NBA.com, but also using SpotRack, who has this very, very nice table here that I'll get to in a little bit. But first and foremost, just a little bit of nomenclature. So salary caps are used to dissuade teams from spending too much or too little money in their league. So as you can see here, minimum team salary has to be 148.465 million. That is known as a salary floor. A cap, of course, is getting on top and therefore stopping spending. Salary floor is raising spending. So every team has to spend at least $148 million around there. There are hard caps and soft caps. A hard cap, one that people will know well, is the cost cap for Formula One, which is somewhere in the, 140 million. Formula One, oh, 215. Okay, a lot more. So 215, where basically if you go over that number for any reason, you will be hard penalized. The NBA and MLB, I think the NFL has a hard cap, but those two leagues have soft caps. The NBA having multiple kinds of soft caps, where instead of being penalized, either having to give up draft picks, like harsh penalties, instead, these soft caps are you either have to, once you spend a certain amount of money, you either have to then get taxed for even more money, or in the NBA's case, you will lose certain privileges. So again, the minimum is 148 million. The first apron, which is what the NBA uses, which is the first soft cap, is 209 million. The second apron, which is the second soft cap, is 221 million. I double checked it, but theoretically, every team can spend as much money as they want. You are limited once you get over the first two aprons, but there is nothing stopping them. The same way there's nothing stopping MLB teams from spending as much as they do. First, just to look over at these cap rules. So they actually have rules for under the cap, in which there are no restrictions, and you just need to spend a certain amount of money before the season starts, which is interesting. Didn't know that. So over the cap, which is what they call it, which is a little weird. I would certainly say, well, it is a cap technically, but it is over the salary floor of 140 million. Nothing happens. The Sixers now are in this section after trading Johni Broome. Then you have the first apron. So this is over, it says 209 here on NBA.com, but I think this is for the 26-27 season, and this is for the 25-26 season, right? So let me go 26-27. Let's refresh this, see how it goes. Yeah, there we go. It makes sense. Bulls, Grizzlies, all teams who are rebuilding, blah, blah, and now these numbers work better. So 209. So the first part is the mid-level exception gets moved around. So mid-level exception is another sort of tradable asset that is basically just purely money. Yeah, that's the best way I would describe it. And it can be used as a way to sign people, and it can also be used as a trade piece. So teams become hard capped at the first apron by or cannot use/do using more than tax mid-level exception out of non-tradable mid-level exception using BAE. biannual exception. Here you are. So you can't use your biannual exception at all, and you can't use using more than tax level exception out of non-tradable. Not quite sure what this means because I don't really know what the tax mid-level exception is, but we'll get to that. Acquiring player via sign and trade. So I've brought up, just to use continuity and being a Sixers fan, I've brought up trading Embiid for Jalen Duren in a sign and trade. If you're over the first apron, you can't do that. You cannot acquire a player via sign and trade. So we couldn't acquire Jalen Duren. Now, I don't know if this is from free agency or if this is just in general. Signing a buyout player who made more than the non-tradable mid-level exception. So, well, this is the tax player. Okay, so no more than 15 million here. Wait, using more than... Oh, so you can't use 6 million of this 15. That's what this is. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so signing a buyout player who made more than this amount of money in their previous contract makes sense. Using more than 100% in salary matching in a trade. So this basically means when teams attempt to trade, they try to get contracts as close to even as possible. You don't have to, but generally it is good practice. And I don't know exactly how close you need to get to, but you do need to be within a certain amount of money. So in this case, they're saying if you are the team and you are adding more money, or if you are the team, you can't add more money than you're giving up. You have to stay within the amount you're giving up using taxpayer exemption that was created in a prior season. Okay, so you wouldn't be able to use this if you used this in 2026, in this season here, in the 26-27 season. You wouldn't be able to use it the next season if you created that room, or if in one way or another, yes, if you created this room, if you created this amount of room in the previous season, but you're still over the first apron, you could not use it. All right, and then the second apron, which is 221, which is again the second soft cap. You don't have to be under this, but it's good too. So no signing exemptions, period. No mid-level of any kind, as you can see here. Teams become hard capped at the second apron cannot, so don't use using the tax mid-level exception right here. Aggregating 2 or more player salaries in a trade. Wow, that is really annoying. Aggregating 2 or more player salaries in a trade? I assume that means basically you can't just like send out 2 players for cash, like for a bunch of cash. Sending out cash in a trade makes sense. Acquiring a player using the taxpayer exemption that was created in a previous sign-in trade, sort of similar to this bottom rule here. You can only re-sign own free agents, sign draft picks, sign players to minimum contract, make teams where one player's salary is sent out and equal or less than salary comes back. Can do a 1-for-2+ trade. So for the Nuggets here, right? So they can re-sign Jokic. They can sign whoever they drafted this season. They could get minimum contract players, which I think they have. And they can only make trades where the salary is less than what they are trading out. So Jamal Murray, for example, however much money he's making, they can only receive players that are making less money than him in the totality of the trade. Even if it means 2 players, 3 players, whatever. If he's making 40 mil a year and they get 30 mil a year over 5 players, it doesn't matter. They're still good. But if they try to trade Jamal Murray for Luka, right, they can't do that. Yeah, that's really it in terms of the salary cap. I'm trying to think. I felt like I had something earlier that I want to mention with caps. Oh, yes, of course. One thing that I mentioned yesterday, this was about Jalen Carter in void years. I should still have that stuff up. I do. So, well, that's the Sixers. It's Jalen Carter. Apron rules. So, I brought this up before, and I'll explain this while I'm pulling up the Eagles. That there are void years, something that sort of started with the Saints in the NFL. I'm not sure who started it in MLB, but there are deferments and void years. So, deferments in this case is you get paid a certain amount of salary. So, we'll say, where is it? Where didn't I have this up yesterday? Where it showed different guys' salaries and showed Jalen Hurts' salary was stupid low. Trying to remember. Anyway, so Jalen Hurts' salary is like 1.3 million, which is ridiculous. But yeah, so a deferment is deferring that salary to a later point. So in this case, it is using Shohei Ohtani, right? He signed a 10-year contract of 700 million, but that contract was deferred another 10 years. So for the first 10 that the Dodgers are paying Shohei when he will play for the team, it will be 2 million a year. But then the 10 after, where Shohei could actually be on different teams, he would then be still being paid 68 million a year from the Dodgers. That's what they do. NFL is a little different, where the only voiding or deferments you can do are on bonuses, hence the void year nomenclature here. The Sixers, smart as they are, will have done this where they will take guys and they will put them on end-loaded contracts where instead of paying salary, so Dak Prescott, right, he gets paid 50 million a year. That's his salary, is that he gets paid 50 million a year. Jalen, in his salary, only gets paid 1.3 million a year, but he gets all these different bonuses that cap-wise is spread out over 5 different years, but is paid all at once to him. So let's say, for example, as I'm getting texts from different things, let's say we'll just use this and drop my phone. We'll use this cap his as an example, right? As a bonus. So when Jalen gets his contract and he gets paid in 2027 here, he will be paid this amount of money, or he'll be paid this cash total amount of money, 51.5 million. However, in terms of the salary cap, to get around this, they say, hey, here's your $1.3 million salary. Here's this bonus, here's this bonus, here's this bonus, here's this bonus, and here's this bonus. But in the technicality of how it's stretched over, it is by those bonuses, instead of it being 10 million in a year and 10 million in cap, it is written in the cap as 2 million a year every of those 5 years. Very odd, very sneaky. I don't know if there's a good way to show. Oh, perfect. So his contract started in 2023, right? So his base salary 1.1, 1.2, 1.2, 1.12, 1.17, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and that's where his playing contract ends. But he has all of these void years where on the cap it says he's getting this much money, but he was paid these bonuses, so if this is the last bonus, right, he gets paid that in 2028. He gets paid this $10 million bonus. But the cap hit for it, even though it could have been paid here or it could have even been paid in 2023, the cap hit doesn't come until this year and then doesn't leave until this year. So it allows you to get room early, but then leaves less room later on, and then you have guys who are technically on the books later. It's a whole thing. But I wanted to go over that just because I mentioned it, and since we were talking about cap today, thought it would be a good addition. But that's going to do it for me. I wish Johni Broome luck in his endeavors, as he is going to, be on the LA Clippers, which, to be fair, I think is actually a pretty good team for him. They're young. They need different types of talents, and with Darius Garland, that should be helpful. That's going to do it for me, and like and subscribe if you enjoy, and hope you have a good day.